CSM presents Time Out with Coach.
Time out.
This time out is about authenticity, the authentic person. It means something that is genuine or trustworthy. What you see is what you get. It means something that's original. We get the word author from that word. The originator. It means the claims are true or as advertised. Authentic. It's real. It's genuine. You can trust it. It's original. It's unique. Did you ever go into a store to buy a product that was advertised and find that there were none left? But there were a lot more expensive items of the same type, and wonder, was the advertising false? And then there were the add-ons. Did you ever go to buy a car that was advertised at a certain price and then find out that it actually cost a great deal more? Did you ever buy a watch off the street? A friend of mine did that one time, and he was so proud of it. It was a beautiful-looking gold watch. And just to verify, we took it to a watchmaker and watch repair shop, and the man looked at it, shook his head after he'd taken the back off, and he said, "This is a pinwheel. Once it breaks, you can never repair it." It looked just like the real thing, but it wasn't going to last very long. The opposite of authenticity is that a thing is unreliable. You can't trust it. I remember years ago, my wife Carolyn brought home some tomatoes. They were green, and I looked on the tomato, and there was a sticker that said, "Vine ripened." What a joke. What happened was I lost my trust and confidence in that brand. And you and I both have lost confidence in lots of brands. I used to buy a particular kind of car many years ago. I would always buy another one of the same brand. And then I began to notice that I had problems. I had service issues. And after frustration that I can't explain to you here, I stopped buying it. And you know what? That's been over 30 years ago. The truth is, once you lose trust in something, you don't want it anymore. It's awful hard for that company, that brand, or that product to regain your confidence. It's vital that we trust. Trust is the currency of our society. We do business. We have fellowship with. We spend time with people we trust. People we don't trust, we stay away from. Products you don't trust, we stay away from. We want to be able to trust the authenticity of our surroundings. If you want it, you have to give it. The penalty for being inauthentic is to wind up around inauthentic people, because trusting people will eventually find us out. Ronald Reagan said, "Trust, but verify." Well, that told you how much he trusted the Soviet Union. But verification gave him the ability to have confidence in the treaty that he made. We do well to trust but verify until we know we can trust. Identity theft is a major issue in our society. It costs us billions of dollars every year. I remember getting a credit card bill where $1,600 was charged by someone other than me. Fortunately, I was able to get it off the bill. Another thing happened in my life years ago when I first began to travel and speak. A man actually stole my entire speech and gave it as his own, almost word for word. And as he traveled around, people who heard my story heard his story and wondered whose story it really was. And finally it came down to a man that I knew and who knew this other man saying, I need the two of you to sit down together and we need to find out whose story this is. It didn't take long for those attending to decide that it was my story. I didn't know the other man, didn't even know that he was doing this. But I will never forget the embarrassment that came over him as he had been exposed as a fraud. I had another situation similar where I gave an illustration in a talk about something that happened between my wife and I. Another person heard the story and liked it and tried to make it his own. Of course, it never was. But someone who heard him tell that story and who heard the story on a cassette that I had released called my wife and said, I need to know, did this happen to you? She said, indeed it did. And the other man was exposed as a fraud. Every day people are scammed. A friend of mine that I talked to just this morning told me how his mother had been scammed. I have other friends who've been scammed. I've been scammed myself. Not many years ago, I bought into a project where old oil wells were going to be redeemed, and oil was going to be extracted because of new methods. And I know that those kinds of things do work. But the profits were too good to be true. Fortunately, I didn't put a lot of money in it, but I didn't get my money out. There was a politician who decided to campaign on the Native American reservation, and so he went out to address the Indians, and he said to them as he stood on the stump, and they all gathered around, if you elect me to be your commissioner and representative, I'll pave this road. You won't have to walk through the pasture. And they said, hoita, hoita, and he said, and if you elect me, I'll bring electricity out to this reservation, and you'll have lights. And again, they just all shouted, hoita, hoita, and he went on with that speech, and finally, when he concluded, they cheered him, hoita, and on the way back, as they were walking through the pasture, his guide said, be careful and don't step in the hoita. Cynicism has become very rampant in our society because we can hardly believe anything that people say to us. Verification and authentication is becoming more and more important in our society because the trust factor's going down, it seems, every day. Our society and our culture is giving way to a lot of inauthenticity. In other words, there's a lot of fraud, and a lot of it is highly sophisticated. Everybody wants to know, how can I verify authenticity? If you go to your ATM machine, they will want your code, and that's something that nobody else knows, and you have to put that in before you get your money out. The money's there, but the ATM machine wants to know, are you authentic? Or if you call a company to inquire about some issue, perhaps a company you've been dealing with, they may ask you, what was your mother's maiden name? They assume that you and you alone will know that. That may not always be true. When I travel, I find more and more service stations where I buy fuel want to know, what is my zip code? I have to put that in before I can get fuel out. In 1983, the J. Paul Getty Museum purchased a statue. It was a very famous statue, and it was almost a perfect copy. They thought it was real. They spent a lot of money. The J. Paul Getty Museum is a very famous museum. When they displayed it, people came to see it, and along with that, a lot of experts. The experts didn't feel good about it. They didn't know why until finally they began to look at the smallest details, the fingernails. The devil is in the details. That's another old saying. The Getty Museum realized that they had a poor verification process. Even though they'd looked at all the papers, there was a lot of forgeries in there. And this is a problem that we have. People have learned how to copy, but the devil is in the details. More and more, we have to look beyond the obvious. And don't forget, more and more people are looking beyond the obvious in your life and mine to see if we're authentic. How can you tell an authentic person? Well, here are a few ways. They're not conformist. They're originals. They're unique. They're themselves. They don't try to fit in. They're not like the little lizard or some other animal that changes colors with every situation. 2, they consistently tell the truth. They speak the same way, no matter what the environment. 3, they enjoy being themselves. You can tell they're comfortable with who they are and what they do. They're not miserable. 4, they know their own strengths and weaknesses. And 5, they don't play out of position. They don't try to be something that they're not. When I was in high school, I loved football, and I wanted to be a quarterback. I guess that's about what every young boy wants to be. But I found out I wasn't a quarterback, and then I tried out for fullback, but I was too small and too slow. But I did make a good guard. I made the all-county team. I was a good guard, but I would have never been successful if I hadn't realized what I wasn't. 6, when you don't know, say you don't know. A lot of people become inauthentic because they try to tell more than they know. Remember this, ignorance is better than lying. It's better to announce, I'm ignorant about that, than it is to fabricate. A 7th way to tell that a person is authentic is that they're predictable in their principles and in their behavior. You can almost know how they're going to respond because they're authentic. If you know their track record, you know their future. And finally, number 8, authentic people are slow to promise, but they're quick to keep their promises. Well, to put it another way, they would rather be a genuine $5 bill than a fake $100 bill. I read the Bible, and I enjoy reading Scripture. A major topic in the Bible is righteousness. Jesus is called the righteousness of God. That is, what he was, what he said, what he did was right. That's the simplest way to put it. Religion is about doctrine. It's about form of worship. It may be about ethics or morals. But Jesus' complaint against the religious leaders of his day was that there was a gap between what was right and their religious practice. Over a period of years, the nation fell. When there's a gap between what we say and what we believe and what we actually are and do, there's a fall coming if we don't correct it. People don't care much about your religion. It's whether you do the right thing that they care about. How can you be authentic? Understand you're not a copy of anyone. You're unique. You can improve, but you're not likely to change your genetic makeup. You are an original. If you're authentic, you're true to that. You can be authentic by getting substance and principles from other people, but don't imitate. Authentic people don't imitate. Don't be an imitator. Don't blend in with your environment. Be authentic. You can be authentic if you promise only what you know you can perform. Trust is your best collateral. When you keep your word, you build the trust people have in you. 5, practice the truth to yourself. Practice it in your family. That's a tough arena. If you can be truthful there and win the trust of your family, you've got a good foundation. Practice the truth in your finances. Deal with your finances truthfully, accurately, in reality. Practice the truth in your church. If you go to church, then be honest with your fellow members and practice the truth in your business. If you do that, there will be good economic results. And number 5, focus on what you do best. If you're a guard, don't try to be a quarterback, but be the best guard that you can. Well, timeout is over, and this ain't no game.
For more information on Time Out with Coach or CSM, please visit www.csmpublishing.org.